fraternity of school. My question has to do with development, especially in water distribution systems. Our small development group at Lafayette has a project in Honduras, and we always have wondered what's the best way to achieve community buy-in, to achieve sustainable, to make sure that the community cares about our water system, their water system, and we always wonder what's the best way to do it. Engineers Without Borders suggests that they should ask the community to pay at least 5 to 10%, but we know this community, and we know that the community is not able to afford this much. So what's the best way to, in your experience, and what's the best way to achieve this type of community buy-in to make sure that the project is sustainable?
There's, again, no best way, but let me explain something that Juan Camilo Cardenas has been doing in Bogota, in Colombia. He was a postdoc at the workshop for a while, and Jimmy Walker and Roy Gardner and I have been doing experiments, and some of the sorts of things that have come from sources. And we're finding that communication and gaining trust and a variety of things were making a big difference. And Juan Camilo did his PhD with Sam Bowles and had quite a bit of prior experience in the field. So he took on the task of translating our experiment into Spanish and developed a strategy that they're now using the variety of experiments. And they go in the field and they spend 3 days, and it's real science. And they pay people quite well. And they use this classroom and have people do real experiments on social dilemmas and all. In the evening and all day Thursday, they get the data entered and really good analysis, and then they do big posters. And on Friday, they invite people from the community back. And the posters are quick analysis. It's not like the journal articles, but they have lots of those as well. But they then discuss, well, what can we learn from this? One of the most memorable experiences I had was listening to an Afro-Colombian woman who had been a fisher, fishing for clams on the coast. And they were notorious for over-harvesting, just notorious. And in the experiments, they over-harvested. They just, and then they gave them some opportunities to learn from that and get a lot more money because they were cooperating. And on the Friday, they discussed this, and she then talked with a group of us that were there talking about use of experiments, etc. And she said, before Professor Cardenas came to our village, we just grabbed. But we learned we were hurting ourselves. We learned that we were hurting ourselves. That day, that Friday, we decided to throw all the small clams back. Step one. Then we began to figure out how we could help each other getting fish into market. And then we decided how could we get a better way of fishing. And they just did all sorts of things. And she said, now, I'm not rich, but we've achieved a great deal because now we are communicating and building trust and all. She didn't use trust, but I'm not saying that's the only way. But now all sorts of NGOs in Colombia are working with Juan Camilo and many of his colleagues. They have a big new water system that's head end, tail end, and it's a very steep area, and there's no trust. And they're beginning to try to think through how can they get some experiments so that people at the various levels can work together and then bring some of them into a head tail end problem. And then what do we learn from the experiment? So all I'm saying is that, see, that's not going in and telling them what to do. That's going in and helping them learn a theoretical lesson that they can then apply. And so much of our development assistance is going in and saying, do this, rather than how do we help one another learn how to do a better job together.
Thank you very much.
You mentioned before about trust and how that builds within communities, and I can see where if communities have things in common, that could be easy to like work with one another.
No,
But if,
sometimes it's hard.
if two communities don't see things in common, but they could potentially work together, like how do they begin to develop that trust?
You have to find ways of bringing people, maybe for picnics at the beginning. Food is great. Of ways of getting people together and discussing these things and saying, yeah, we're not going to come in. See, it's the difference between our coming in and telling them that this is what they need to do, or our coming in light of knowing the diversity of ways that people have solved this, and helping give them ideas, not one, ideas of ways that others have tackled problems that are similar, that they can then say, oh, 5 of your ideas wouldn't work for us at all, but number 6, that's kind of interesting. Let's talk about it some more. And that's a different approach than we've done the modeling and we have the optimum. We've done a lot of research and understand there are a diversity of ways that you're trying to get people to take a long-run view, to begin to agree on a joint project activity, to then find ways that they can take small steps. Because if you take a big step and it doesn't work, you failed again. But what are some of the small steps we can take to begin that help us move ahead? And then, in light of some small successes, more.
Thank you. My name is Catherine and I'm from Kenya, and I had an experience working at Mount Kenya region where communities were facing the same problems with ensuring that the forest is well maintained. And from what I got is that at the end of the day, the income level really plays a great role, because somebody won't go to the forest to cut a tree so that they sell the logs if they have another source of income. So in your experience, what are some of the ways that poverty alleviation and management of proper management of resources can be, what ways can those two be brought together at the grassroots level to solve what issues?
Yeah, trying to provide technical knowledge about how to get agricultural productivity better, how to get better marketing information, how to find ways of, one of the things that the group in Oaxaca is doing is they're planting some crops that besides food generate high income. But they have, the NGO knows how to market that, the local people don't. So at the beginning, they come in and say, let's try this, and then as they get more income in and they can build local schools and get better food and more kids in high school, etc., then they train more people in the technical knowledge. So you don't all of a sudden expect people to have highly technical knowledge, but if you invest in it, you can find ways of, oh, we can increase the income. And they were able to do it. So it takes kind of ingenuity. What in this ecology? So they were in an epiphyte zone. And in that zone, you can plant orchids and trees. You don't have to cut the tree down. But it took that technical insight, and then they had to know how to get the orchids to the U.S., but then they could sell them like that. And that money came back. And so it's the blend of not telling them what to do, but providing opportunities. I have a doctoral student who worked with the Maasai on the other side of Kenya, and that's itself a very interesting story of top-down. But we won't go into that today.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.